All right, Gustavo, thank you for joining me here today. I know that you are an integral part of the Brownstone team. So can you give me a little bit of background about who you are and what your professional career consisted of before joining Brownstone?
Yes, of course, my pleasure. I am 60 years old and have been in a global finance and investing for 35 years. I spent the first 20 years of my career in JP Morgan in their global investment banking business, holding different positions. But the last 10 years, I was global head of emerging markets trading, which is the locations and the businesses in investment banking that JP Morgan carries in what is called the third world, in Southeast Asia, Middle East and Africa, and then Latin America. Then I moved and I was for 6 or 7 years involved in a fund, a Swiss-based fund that essentially had as investors global pension funds. And we run investing money in real markets, not in financial markets, but in physical assets, whether those were property, gold mines, fleets of airplanes, or a number of different energy projects, hotels. And then after that, after a hiatus of around 3 or 4 years, and I remarried, and now Shelton is the first cousin of my wife. And through conversations and knowing that he had graduated from Harvard and was in business, and also he was a banker in JP Morgan, we started to connect. And because of that, I became interested in his approach to real estate investment and development. And back 7 years ago, in 2014, it was the first time that I said, let's give this a try, because of his background educationally, knowing his family very, very, very well. I had a little bit more of confidence that this would be a very profitable venture. And over the years, out of probably more than 80 properties that he has bought, renovated, developed, I have been invested in between 55 and 57 properties. And so therefore, his niche has matured in terms of origination edge, experience that you always learn by making mistakes. I remember we were a decentralized operation, and now we are a fully vertically integrated operation. Which is part of what, other than being the main investor behind Brownstone, mainly family run and family and friends money, I have been working on the strategic part of moving the company to a different stage. And therefore, we learned that the best model going forward was being vertically integrated A to Z in the different areas that involve the business today.
That's great. Yeah. And aside from having a strong background, it's also assuring to know that you're part of not only the family, but part of the company as a whole. How much money did you initially put into Brownstone, and how has that changed over the years? Have you been using the investments for capital appreciation, or has it been more for generating cash flow? And how has that adjusted, over time?
Well, my original investment was, as I said, 7 years ago. And I think the first investment was around $400,000 in two different properties. I remember still Paragat and Clarendon. And over time, realizing gains and reinvesting those gains, and then sometimes not necessarily reinvesting the whole gains. Probably right now, I have to tender probably around $5.7 million in properties. And the idea now is that this is not for me to take a profit and do something else with it. I'm fully vested in the philosophy of the company and how we have evolved in that philosophy. How we've been able to, yes, of course, work for profit, but how being having become, and sometimes I say it fell in our lap, an integral part of the community, of the minorities in this community. There's a purpose in addition to that it's extremely fulfilling to us to know that we are helping people realize better value for the properties they own, or get themselves out of trouble where sometimes other parties don't help them. We say, what, we can make money, but help you too. So there's a broader spectrum, in addition to the fact that I can speak comfortably because you put your money where your mouth is, and I have done that. And I am here to stay for the long term, to see this company achieve critical mass, looking very proactively right now for institutional money, not just family and friends. I think we are at that point, and become credible in a broader audience.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense, especially, from the growth from where you were at, $400,000 to grow into, call it just shy of $6 million. There has to have been a decent return for you there in order to put more money in. What is it about the investment structure itself that is attractive to you, somebody who is a sophisticated investor before you put money into Brownstone NYC? What is it about the structure that makes it attractive to you, that allows you to not only have put more money in, but also give you confidence that you're going to be able to attract institutional money in?
Well, to me, a lot of investors, when they start getting into real estate, the first concern they have, and I have had that hundreds of conversations with other investors or potential investors, they want security, they want collateral. They see real estate, they want to put money behind real estate, but they want collateral. My experience has been that the risk-adjusted returns in our business model is be full equity or at the minimum prefer equity, because I think I have the benefit of experience. And I always say opinions don't matter, because your opinion is as good as mine. But if you use statistics, therefore we reach a conclusion that I may be wrong, of course, but it's more likely that this is going to happen versus that. And now in general, in real estate, you make your profits. If you're going to buy and sell, you make your profits when you buy, not when you sell. You sell at market. If you buy smart, that's when you make your money. And this is being the origin of the profits of this company are two, mainly. One is the ability and repeated ability that Shelton, the brains behind this, has managed to go ahead of the curve and find the next area where value is going to be created, either for gentrification, from some other modification, for the schooling getting better. That's one source of profitability. The other one is the execution excellence, where I have specific cases where you go to an area in Brooklyn, the houses are selling for the equivalent house says for $500,000. We renovate the house, we take pictures of the interior, and we sell it for 5% above market. So the value created because of the execution and the quality of the execution renovations, in addition to the origination edge. So those are two sources of profits that naturally give you a cushion that makes me comfortable. I want to be part of the equity.
Right.
Which does not exclude somebody being comfortable with just having collateral and being senior.
Right. So the structure of the investment as a whole, with the increased profit margin from the vertical operation, gives you confidence that institutional money will be flowing into it. You've seen the likes of Blackstone, for instance. They've been very heavy in the real estate market. So kind of based on that and the changing demographics within the New York City metro, you think that you guys will be able to attract more capital and maintain that profit margin going forward. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, our background as well, it has taught us to, I've seen the competition, not the BlackRock type of competition, but let's say the developers, they are obviously very, very smart and seasoned developers, risk takers, and entrepreneurs. But we have, probably because of our background, both schooling and investment banking, we have a process behind our due diligence that I have seen in many cases. It differentiates us. We don't go back on the envelope. We follow a very specific, as a matter of fact, another member of the family, Shelton's father, is an engineer from Colombia. Engineers are thorough, method, so that has become an asset over the years.
And then knowing that this is a family endeavor, knowing that you view this capital investment as being long-term, walk me through where you want this to go over the next 5-10 years, and what is the significance of that for your family, having a young family, and the growth plans going forward. Where do you want this to go, and how would you feel fulfilled? What needs to happen for you to feel fulfilled if we're having a conversation 5 to 10 years about in the future about the performance of Brownstone NYC?
I think that it's a combination of continue to be able to execute, fulfilling our couple of goals. One is we're profitable. We can afford to be transparent in our profitability, and we bring value to all the parties. The people that buy, they know they're getting good property. The people that sold, they're getting good value for what they sold. And because we're very efficient and we go to the source and we don't have intermediate brokers, we can still clear profit ourselves. Now, to me, repetition, I'm not interested in getting out. We're not interested to sell this to anybody. We're not interested to merge to a big operation. Would we be completely against it? In 10 years, somebody comes? I don't know. I cannot answer for the future. But right now, I want to see repetition and expansion in terms of the areas that we cover and the number of projects that we can carry, because we have what is called, at this point, operating leverage. There's a fixed cost to run this company. But instead of having 20 projects going on, we could have 40 or 50 without getting out of hand, without something that we cannot control because of our due diligence process, the method that we use on it. So therefore, professionalize more the business that we are in so that people can see the difference, continue to be able to act with transparency, and, one day, legacy. I have 2 young children, and Shelton will soon start his family, and all of our other cousins. Shelton has a sister who has 2 children. She's a physician. She's not in the business, but carrying the family name forward has value to all of us.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. That's very encouraging, and it's inspiring to see where it's going. Obviously, from where it came, but also, to where it's going and what it can become, I think is inspiring. And I love the message of transparency and the significance of that, for you moving forward. So this is very helpful. Is there anything you want to say in closing before we wrap this up?
No, I have I have very high uncertainty as far as the timing, also because of the global situation we come from. But I have a very high level of confidence. I always say that I never say this is where things are going, because I know I can be wrong. So I always create in my other endeavors in global finance, I create 2 scenarios. And certain conditions happen, and this is what is going to happen as a result. Certain other conditions happen, and the result will be different. And I try to react and analyze and say, which is the more likely scenario? One that has more probability, that's what I'm going to go for. But I'm aware that I may be making a mistake, and therefore I have to cover myself. The more likely scenario that I see is we are going to reach critical mass within the next few months or a year. And then we have to decide whether we're going to go and get a committed money as a pool instead of individual properties and start a fund to broaden up the spectrum of investors. But I do give a high probability of occurrence of us being able to succeed and reach a critical mass in this business.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right, just based on what I've seen so far. So it's encouraging.
I'm glad you agree.
Yeah,
it's very important to see people that see us from outside say, well, this makes sense. Am I making sense to you? That's
yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that based on the folks that are on the team and also the type of investors that you've been dealing with thus far, it only bodes to your message and where you're going. So I think that this is great. So with that, let's wrap this up, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay.
It was great talking to you.
All right. Great talking to you as well.
Good day.